Welcome to Leadership Sovereignty, the podcast. I'm your host, Ralph Owens, along with Terry Baylor. In today's episode, we'll touch on topics such as focusing on common interest instead of positions, how preparation is the key to success in any negotiation, the power of the anchoring technique, and understanding the best alternative to a negotiated agreement. Enjoy the show. Another fantastic point or tactic is to focus on interest and not positions. So what does that mean? Sometimes people can get into these types of conversations and they want to state their positions on certain things, whether it be religion, whether it be politics, things of that nature. That's not the place for you to state your positions. That's the place for you to talk about different interests that you would share with that person, right? So that you can continue to make that connection and continue. You don't want to subliminally offend them either. So once you talk about the interest, your shared interest that you have in common with them, right? Now you can further build a connection, right? Instead of or build a bridge instead of building walls, right? If that makes sense.
So, Ralph, what I believe I'm hearing is the negotiation starts well before you start talking about money.
Yes. All great negotiation does. It never starts when you get in the room. When you get in the room, you should already be halfway done.
Wow. And so here's the thing, guys. That means, right, going in there, making a connection, right? And I agree with you, Ralph. And I want to share a story with you, right? Because here's how important connection is. Sometimes there are things that are happening that you have no authority, you have no influence, you have no ability to impact.
Mm-hmm.
You know why? Because that person has had experiences outside of who you are.
Right.
But understand, you know what they may do though? And again, this is outside of our control, right? And it goes back to, Ralph, what you said, what's for you is for you. And, and if it doesn't come around, then, God's got something better for you.
Mm-hmm.
And so there are times, man, that a person, I'm going to share a real life story right around this, but you can be connected to something because of someone else's experience that you know nothing about.
Right. Yep.
Right. But the beauty is you go in there with the right intention, the right mindset, the right motivation, right? Which is presenting the best version of yourself as you can, right?
Yes.
Connecting at a people level, at a person level, right? Connecting, right? Again, another shameless plug for your story, your brand, right? And Ralph, to your point, when they share, right? Most leaders are going to share something about themselves as they are trying to determine if you are the right fit, right? Because if you're at the point of negotiations, understand they believe you are the right fit.
That's right.
They're not going to talk money, right? Long-term kind of situations with someone that they don't believe is the right fit. So if you're there at that point, you're 50% there. You're halfway there.
That's right.
Right. And so one of the things that we're talking about though is at this point is the meeting before that.
That's right.
Right. It's the meeting before that. Right. And so where it's that, hey, let me get a sense, we're down to the last 2 or 3 candidates. Let me get a sense and a feel for who they are as a person, as an individual. So you are negotiating at that point. Real life story. I know of a person who was interviewing for a job, pretty prestigious job here in the city. And it came down to two candidates. The person shared with me, they saw who the other candidate was, right? And they're like, okay, I see who my competition is, right? And so this individual is in the room with that C-suite leader,
Mhm.
and the person shared with me there was a statement or comment made that was odd and weird.
Hmm.
And they were like, I don't really know how to accept that or how to take that comment. And basically, the long story short is the person didn't get the job.
Okay.
And this person was baffled because hardly ever had they got into that space,
Mhm.
which was essentially it's the close.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's the close meeting, right? I'm going to close this. Well, this person carried this for months, just not understanding what happened.
Mhm.
And again, I'm going back to there are some things you can control and the things you can't control.
Right.
Control the controllables. In this
Mhm.
scenario, this person ended up finding out that they weren't selected because there was something about that person that reminded them of somebody they had previously knew.
Mhm.
Now, the person who was doing the interview had no,
Mhm. The
how
interviewee.
could that, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, the interviewee had no understanding of that.
Mhm.
Hey, you know what that person had to chalk it up to? It just wasn't the
Yeah.
right one, right? It
Right.
was great practice for the next one.
That's right. That's right. That's
Right. And
right.
part of this exercise too, guys, just to encourage you, and I've heard I'm a Joel fan, right? I'm a Joel fan. Joel said, look, if you have to go through 9 no's to get to your yes,
Mm.
come on, man, let's get the no's through.
Mhm.
Let's
Yeah.
get
Let's
let's
get
get through
past them.
these no's.
Yeah.
And again, right? So that's all a part of the negotiation process, right? Whether you understand it or not, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Because it allows you to grow, it allows you to mature, right? And so when you do get in front of the right seat, that preparation of going through this and being in the room, right? Understanding that, okay, I don't have to have sweaty palms,
Mhm. That's right.
right? When we get to this point.
Right.
So
Right.
all of those experiences are a part of the negotiation process because here's what we're learning. The
Mhm.
negotiation happens well before you get to the final stage.
Mhm.
It is all of this is a part of the
Mhm.
process, right? If
Mhm.
that makes sense.
Mhm. Yeah. 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 And so funny point. This is why wives mostly win at all these arguments because they have already prepared their case long ahead of time before they said anything to us, and we just like, huh? What you talking
Yes.
about?
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Yes.
Right.
Yeah,
But
you go in prepared, man.
yeah, you
Go
go in
in
prepared.
with as much information, right? Research the company, understand, what their uh, P&L statement is, right? Understand who their main client is, right? Understand who their main, who's
Competitor.
your biggest competition, right?
Yeah.
All of
Yep.
these kind of things, right? So go in prepared because the negotiations start and end. What you
Hmm.
know about them.
That's right. That's right. So another technique we want to bring to you, and this is from the book called The Negotiation Genius. Right. Read that book. It taught me so much about the negotiation process that I've used, and I highly recommend it to other people. But there's a technique called anchoring. Right. So when you have to negotiate with um, someone, somebody has to start the negotiations. Right. Typically, whatever price or salary, if you want to call it, that is thrown out first, that is the point in which the negotiation starts. So they basically call it an anchor, right? So if you start off closer to where you want to be, now you're anchoring the conversation closer
Mm.
towards your goal, right? Instead of allowing them to start off lower and then you having to try to pull them up, if that makes sense. Right. So anchoring is a technique that's used in negotiation. Another technique that came from that book is understanding three things: your reservation value. So your reservation value is the lowest you're willing to take before you walk away from the negotiation, right? You need to understand that before you even get into the room. Okay, let's just use round dollars. You want this job and it pays, you need it to pay $25 an hour. And that's the lowest that you're willing to go. Okay. You also need to understand the other party's reservation value, which is the highest they're probably willing to go as well. Okay. So, and the difference between those two is what's called the ZOPA, or the zone of possible agreement. Right. So a couple things just to recap that. You need to understand your reservation value, basically the lowest that you're willing to take. And then you need to understand or have an expectation of what the other party's reservation value is, the most they're willing to pay. And then understand the difference between the two is where you have to play in the negotiation space, right? Using the anchoring technique to anchor as high as you can to what they're willing to give up, right? And not starting at the lowest RV, which is what you're willing to take. I mean, any thoughts on that, Terry?
Yeah, definitely, Ralph. So I remember when I was preparing to, move to Houston, and started, doing the research, and I came across a very similar technique, and it's called the BATNA, BATNA, and it stands for Best Alternative to a Negotiated Agreement. Basically, it's a strategy that can help you determine your ideal salary and what you're willing to accept if your ideal situation doesn't work out. Having a BATMA can give you more leverage in a negotiation and help you avoid settling for something less than your bottom line, right? So, and it gives a couple, techniques. One is list all your alternatives.
Mm-hmm.
What does it look like, right?
Mm.
And so, what one of the things, and I know, Ralph, I don't want to get ahead of us, but what the beauty of a BATNA is that it's going to help you go through the exercise and bring in more items within the negotiation than just what that salary dollar amount is,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because you're looking at all the alternatives, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It helps you evaluate the value of each alternative, choose your preferred alternative, and then, to Ralph's earlier point, determine the lowest deal you're willing to accept. And so, um, and Ralph, let me know if I'm getting too far ahead, but in that, right, you're going to determine a lot of things, right? What does vacation look like,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? What is 401k? What are your benefits? That's a huge one,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Is, with since COVID, hey, do you guys have a work from home policy?
That's
Right?
right.
I know folks right now that say, look, if there is no work from home policy, don't even offer me,
Mm.
because it has been such a drastic change, right? Psychologically,
Mm-hmm.
right? To have to get up and go in 5 days a week, knowing that you really can do your job from home really 3 days a week, but I'll give you 3 days in the office,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, you know, eh, just factoring in all those things, right? Factoring in, what does your commute look like, right?
Mm.
Your employer is not going to consider that, but you have to consider that in your BATNA,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you live in a city that has tolls, right?
Mm.
Because now you have to factor that against your salary,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Versus, what you're doing today. So
Right.
again, don't shortchange yourself as it pertains to just looking at the job is the bottom line um, number that you're going to offer me, right? Is
Mm-hmm.
there bonus with this
Mm-hmm.
with this with this opportunity,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
How many layers of management exist? And we haven't even gotten into this part, Ralph. What's the culture like?
Mm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right? Understand how your department operates, right? Do you guys have a top-down mentality? Is it a matrix style? How do you guys manage, projects? Are you a agile shop? Right? There's
Hmm.
so many things that go into your life experience at this employer.
Hmm.
It's not just what is that dollar amount. And so you factor in all of those things to come to what your dollar amount's going to be,
Hmm.
right? Because you may give 5,000 because you get to work 3 days a week from home.
Hmm.
Because you're saving that in clothes and lunch, travel, right? You got to have, and going back to Ralph, we say this all the time now at home. You got to know your numbers.
Always. Yeah. Always.
You
Always.
got to
Always.
know your numbers.
Thank you for listening to the Leadership Sovereignty Podcast. We hope that you not only enjoyed the content, but gained something to help you on your personal leadership journey. Feel free to reach out to us on X and Instagram under the handles Leadership Sovereignty. Until next time, stay safe, peace, and blessings.